Someone I want to see.
My friend Sherlock Holmes.
221B Baker Street.
Hello there. Welcome to my review of The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes, Series 2, Episode 3, The Norwood Builder. This is a classic Sherlock adventure, but one that is often overlooked. It opens with an old woman looking on as a fire rages outside, and we see a human skull amongst the inferno. The fire brigade arrives, and the woman leads the fire chief into a room, where she discovers a walking cane covered in blood. The police then arrive, led by Inspector Lestrade, in his first and only appearance in The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes. Before we can find out more, we cut to Holmes and Watson the next day, in a tobacconist's, as Holmes laments the distinct lack of criminal activity.
From the point of view of the criminal expert, London has become a singularly uninteresting city.
Well, I hardly think you'll find many decent citizens to agree with you.
This is in stark contrast to the street urchins gathering up horse manure off the street to sell. While not regularly the focus of the series, every now and then it does provide a view of the poverty of Victorian London. It's never really resolved whether Holmes doesn't investigate minor thefts of the lower classes because it is of little interest to him, or if it's because he doesn't see the point in subjecting those with nothing to the misery of prison. But considering his dim view of the well-educated or titled criminal mind, it's likely that he understands that to kill the beast you should go for the head. We then see Mrs. Hudson telling a well-dressed gent that Holmes is not at Baker Street, but the man insists on seeing him. Holmes arrives just in time, and the man announces himself as John Hector MacFarlane. Inside, Holmes says he doesn't recognise the man's name, but then goes on to deduce several details about him, leaving MacFarlane speechless, as Watson explains how Holmes did it. If proof were ever needed that Watson is learning Holmes's methods and becoming a formidable detective in his own right, here it is, coming as second nature to him. It's such a refreshing portrayal of Watson, far from the caricature he had become throughout the decades of adaptations of presenting him as a good-natured fool. MacFarlane's story is all over the morning paper, which neither Holmes nor Watson had read at that point. So Watson reads the story.
At about 12 o'clock last night, an incident occurred at Lower Norwood which points, it is feared, to a serious crime.
A small timber yard caught fire at the back of a house belonging to Mr. Jonas Oldacre, a builder.
An examination of his room revealed a safe which was open, signs of a murderous struggle,
And a heavy walking stick with stains of blood upon the handle.
MacFarlane pleads with Holmes to allow him to finish his story before he is arrested on the charge of Oldacre's murder. It was his cane found covered in blood at Oldacre's home. MacFarlane denies the charge and wants Holmes to investigate. As he tries to explain his situation, Lestrade arrives, and Holmes greets him with a smile of a crocodile.
Inspector Lestrade.
And asks for another half an hour with MacFarlane so he can hear him out. Brett is in particularly fine form here, playing the giddiness of Holmes with a new enthralling case, and the humility of a man asking the police for a favour.
Oh, no, but just one moment, Lestrade. Half an hour more or less can make little difference to you, and this young gentleman was about to give us an account of this very interesting affair, which might aid us in clearing it up.
MacFarlane goes on to explain that he didn't know Oldacre, but the name was familiar to him. Oldacre had approached MacFarlane in his capacity as a lawyer to draft Oldacre's will, only to discover Oldacre is leaving everything to him. The reason for this is that Oldacre once knew and planned but failed to marry Macfarlane's mother, and now Macfarlane's father is dead, Oldacre wants to look after Macfarlane as he has no heirs of his own. He also wants to keep the whole thing a secret.
Oh, one last thing. Not a word of this to your dear mother until everything is settled. I want it to be a little surprise for her.
That is what's known as a red flag in a Sherlock Holmes story. Macfarlane went to Oldacre's home to finalise the details, and after many hours of work, did so. As he prepared to leave, he was unable to find his cane, but Oldacre said he can collect it the next time he visits. That was on the night of the disappearance. Lestrade takes Macfarlane away, but not before Holmes has borrowed the original copy of the will that Oldacre hand-wrote and provided to Macfarlane. As Holmes studies the draft, we get a lovely glimpse of the Persian slipper he keeps his tobacco in on the fireplace. A little Easter egg for Holmes aficionados. Holmes spots that the draft was written on a train, suggesting Oldacre didn't really care about what he was writing. Rather than inspect the crime scene, they first go to see Macfarlane's mother, who explains she was once engaged to Oldacre, but she broke off the engagement when she came to realise Oldacre was a mean-spirited, angry and cruel man, a sadist. Holmes asks if Macfarlane was aware of this, and she says he did know a little of it, which the police might see as a motive. They then visit the crime scene, and Lestrade is there, having discovered Oldacre's trouser buttons burned in a pile of ash. The body being unrecognisable, Watson makes a very telling remark.
Presumably the organic remains have been removed to the laboratory.
They have, Doctor, though they'll be of little use, I suspect. The poor devil was no more than bone and cinder.
Thank heavens he was wearing his trousers.
They examine the cane, and Holmes begins to doubt himself as he says, in a line straight from Doyle,
All my instincts are one way and all the facts are the other.
They question the housekeeper, the woman from the prologue, but she reveals very little of use, other than her devotion to Oldacre. Watson then looks over Oldacre's financial records as Holmes takes a walk, and Brett demonstrates yet more reason why he is perfectly cast as he idiosyncratically studies the site of the fire and finds a very odd scene indeed, which seems to strike him with inspiration. He meets up with Watson, who says he's intrigued by what he hasn't found. There are important documents missing, and Oldacre had seemingly paid his fortune out to a Mr. Cornelius. I have to once again praise the location work here, as Oldacre's house is perfectly Victorian, with a long-established garden that really adds to the believability of the episode, although I was a little distracted by the appearance of an extra as a detective that I'm pretty sure is a woman in fake sideburns and a moustache. It's a fleeting appearance, but maybe they were short of male extras that day, or maybe I'm mistaken, but do let me know if you agree. Watson goes off to investigate further, while Holmes remains to look around. He speaks with the housekeeper again, this time about a tramp he claims to have seen, and she tells him they don't believe in giving charity to vagrants. Holmes is clearly onto something, as he creates a rudimentary disguise in order to speak with their tramp living in the woods. He discovers there was a tramp who claimed to have received a warm welcome at Oldacre's, but must have been lying, as the man Holmes speaks with was warned off. Holmes is definitely onto something now, but is still not entirely sure what, as he sits deep in thought back at Baker Street. He has received a telegram from Lestrade claiming they have found fresh evidence proving MacFarlane's guilt once and for all, which has left Holmes in a deep depression, in complete juxtaposition to his mood when he first set about to solve the case. Luckily, Watson proves invaluable again, rousing Holmes to see what Lestrade has on MacFarlane. Back at Oldacre's, Lestrade is the one who now revels in giddy delight.
Ah, Mr. Holmes, Dr. Watson. I think you will acknowledge that we're just a little in front of you this time. Step this way, if you please, gentlemen, and I'm sure I can convince you that it was John MacFarlane who committed this crime.
As he shows Sherlock a freshly discovered thumbprint in blood. The print belongs to MacFarlane and appears to leave Holmes dejected. He asks Lestrade if he minds if Holmes looks upstairs, and as he does so, a change once again comes over him.
Sorry things look so bad, Holmes.
But there is a serious flaw in this new evidence. That thumbprint was not there when I examined the hole yesterday.
The change in Holmes's demeanour is incredibly well balanced and controlled as he tells Lestrade that he has a new witness, but requires some help to produce him. Taking a few constables with straw and buckets of water into one of the empty rooms he was examining, Lestrade questions what he's doing as he instructs Watson to light some damp straw. With the straw smoking, he encourages the group to yell fire.
Please join me in the call of fire. 1, 2, 3. Fire!
Fire!
We can do better than that. Full voice and together. Fire!
After a few seconds, a panel pops off a wall and Holmes's witness appears from a hole in the wall. Oldacre himself. Being a builder, he was easily able to construct a false wall where he could live quite comfortably while waiting for MacFarlane to be hanged. But, deciding to cement the case against MacFarlane, he used wax to lift MacFarlane's thumbprint and plant it, unwittingly giving Holmes the clue he needed to exonerate MacFarlane. Oldacre tries to play it off as a practical joke. However, Holmes is able to prove that Oldacre murdered a tramp and disguised him as himself in order to leave a body behind. Oldacre threatens Holmes as he and the housekeeper are escorted away.
I'll see you hanged for this.
That privilege must surely be mine.
I feel it's worth pointing out, in contrast to the last episode I reviewed, The Greek Interpreter, how much this episode benefits from a change to the ending. In the original story, there was no tramp. Oldacre had used animal bones as a fake corpse, which I don't think works as well, because even then you have to believe a coroner could tell the difference between human and animal bones. Or found it suspicious that the burned corpse was lacking a skull and several other bones that make up a human. Making Oldacre an actual murderer really highlights just how hell-bent on revenge against MacFarlane's mother he was, and just how psychotic his plan was, willing to go to such lengths. I think it raises the stakes perfectly, without altering the themes or the characters within the story. This is one case where I think Doyle would have approved of the alterations. It gives more weight to the story. This is a fantastic episode all round. Brett is on fine form, playing different shades of Holmes perfectly, and Burke's Watson is brilliant in support of and help to the investigation. They feel much more of a team here than they ever have before. Colin Jeavons Lestrade is also perfect, as he thinks he's got the better of Holmes, but is still magnanimous in his defeat, showing that he is happier that justice is served than he is just beating Holmes. The rest of their cast, in their brief appearances, are all very convincing, and the pacing is perfect for the 50-minute runtime. It looks absolutely gorgeous, as usual, and little touches like the roadworks at 221B really help with the immersion into this world. This is unquestionably 5 out of 5. Thank you. Goodbye.